Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice Podcast. My name is Elle, and I return to speak on some Law of One spiritual philosophy topics and to share with you my opinions and life experience in that regard. So today I have a few quotes lined up, and it's going to be more so about the topics of how serving ain't easy. It isn't easy. In mostly, it's going to be geared towards like what do people want to hear versus what serves them. We're going to be talking about how it is easy to be misunderstood. We're going to talk about how we should be speaking truthfully and what does that mean and, how do you even go about it? And then, discrimination versus admiration. It's a fancy way of basically just telling somebody to speak the truth to somebody in love rather than just sort of ignoring all their distortions for the sake of being nice and kind. And we're also going to be tying into this how you sometimes need to break away from culture and society just temporarily, which kind of seems like a bad thing, but sometimes we need to do that in order to reevaluate who we know ourselves to be and what our morals are and where we stand in life, so that then we can basically come back into the matrix and into the life experience with a new perception that we can then basically feel confident about what we're doing and what we're seeking. And so we're going to talk about how, a little bit of dissociation from culture, how that may be a good and a bad thing, but we'll put it all together. So it would seem appropriate to begin with this quote, which is about that admiration and discrimination thing I'm talking about. I feel this is actually a super common thing in culture right now. Everybody wants to sort of live on the surface and just pretend that they're a nice person. Hey, I'm kind. I don't think about bad things. I would never view you in that way. I don't see you doing anything wrong. But really, in your head, you're judging them probably. And to what degree your judgments are true or not true, that may vary. However, if you are, I suppose, have your intentions set to serve, then hopefully your judgments come from a good intentioned place, in which case it, to me, is fair to share those judgments with other people, provided that they come from a loving and understanding and kind place. So we are going to read you this quote here from session 101.8 from the Law of One material. You can get links to it at my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com, and I have links to the LL Research team who provides us all of this for free. Thank you. So 101.8, Ross states, "The entity which is given constant and unremitting approval by those surrounding it suffers from the loss of the mirroring effect of those which reflect truthfully rather than unquestioningly. This is not a suggestion to reinstate judgment, but merely a suggestion for all of those supporting instruments, that is, support be harmonious, share in love, joy, and thanksgiving, but find love within truth. For each instrument benefits from this support more than from the total admiration which overcomes discrimination." End of quote. So it's a little hard to really break down. There's quite a lot of points in there. But like I said, basically, if you are just constantly admiring somebody and not, basically not interacting with them in like an unquestioningly manner, in other words, you just admire them to the point that there's just constant love and acceptance, which is okay, but, we're all not perfect, okay? So, and also when I'm talking about this, I want you to recognize that other people can give you judgments and you need to sort of receive them just as fairly as you expect other people to receive yours. This definitely goes both ways, so don't think that it's just you being a perfect person telling everyone where they suck. It's not the case. The mirroring effect has to go both ways, and in fact, I would even posit that when you do hold up that mirror to others in a loving and truthful manner, you will also have them attempting to do the same back to you. Now, are they doing it in defense? Maybe, right? Maybe they're just coping and trying to hold up a mirror and say, haha, well, you got me, well, I got you. That does happen. However, there's still truth within people's judgments. So even if they come from a sort of triggered place within themselves, there still might be some truth to that, right? Some people just are afraid to speak the truth, but then it comes out of them and it's like, oh, maybe you're right. So, it goes both ways. You would want to speak to them truthfully, tell them, where you think they're being a dummy, but you do it with love, and you do it in, like, there's no perfect way to do it. Each person is different, so how you're going to cater to them, that's a bit of an art, and how you deliver your message and try to get yourself to come across. And then hopefully it is received well. Of course, it often is not in these days. I find that the harder the truth that you're trying to deliver, the more possibility of a kickback that you're going to get. The more that like someone else isn't in resonance with that truth, the more it kind of offends them to see you being so confident in it, I think, which then, sort of leads into being misunderstood, I suppose. I picked this topic today because I am feeling a little bit down. I was, I do, obviously, I'm a bit of a truth seeker, right? Obviously. And so in my personal life, I do have other people, family and friends who don't know that like I'm into this law of one type thing, right? But they see like things that I post on my personal social media, and it's easy to be misunderstood, I suppose. As hard as I try to be delicate in what I post and choose my words very carefully, people will sort of choose to misunderstand you. They'll still sort of look at what you're saying, your point of view, in the worst possible light they can. They see it in like the most disingenuous, gross, literal interpretation that they can, instead of really being honest and fair with you and giving you the benefit of the doubt and seeking that subtle nuance that you're probably trying to deliver, right? It's like it's hard to deliver a truth, right? It's sort of like truth is infinite, and we can only use finite words to try to describe these infinite things. So we will always be folly in our attempts to describe these things, but it does sort of take a bit of fairness from both sides of the people who are in this conversation, that you don't try to take their opinion and frame it in the most disingenuous way that you can, because that, in my opinion, is not seeking understanding. That's sort of your ego seeking to be right and seeking to put other people in the wrong so that you can feel more correct about yourself. And then like that goes both ways. Once again, the other people will do that to you too. So, serving ain't easy because, Ross says in another quote, which I don't have pulled up here, but I kind of have it memorized. It's something like, to activate the the throat chakra, you have to exercise what your culture has in great paucity, which just means like in very low amounts, and that is honesty. So in other words, our culture, our world, we kind of suck at being honest with each other because it's sort of easier to just live on the surface and not disturb the waters. And it's just, it's people get offended, and then they think that when they're offended that you've done something wrong to them, but just being offended doesn't really mean anything. Nobody's necessarily wronged you by offending you. They've just sort of challenged your thoughts, I suppose. So I want to continue on with explaining how, it's maybe sometimes it's okay to be misunderstood. So in the material here, they state that as you seek to become the adept, kind of a fancy way of just saying that, you want to like dedicate your life to seeking the truth, seeking love. That to me is sort of being the adept. So they say here, as somebody seeks to be the adept, they can sometimes kind of polarize towards service to self temporarily, in order that they disassociate from the culture just momentarily, so that they can really think about what it is that they are about. Like, what do they live for? What do they stand for? It's so easy in culture to hijack your desires, to tell you what you want, right? Like, do you really know what you desire? Do you really know what you desire? Do you really know what you want? Or are you just sort of repeating things from family and friends and TV and commercials and social media, of all those suggestions that they give you that this is the way to live and this is the way to have a happy life, and look at me, I'm so happy, and look at all the things I have, and blah 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 blah. So there's a movie which actually I would suggest you guys watch, because you're fellow weirdos. If you listen to this podcast, you'll probably appreciate it. It's a movie called Branded. You have to usually type it in Branded 2012, because there's a couple of movies with that name. But this one specifically is sort of about that, how this guy, removes himself from society temporarily so that he can sort of wake up and know who he is, and then he comes back into the society, and as he comes back into the society, he sees the truth, and he sees the way things really are. But before that, he couldn't see them, because it was just like, when you're living in it, it's hard to see it. When you remove yourself from it and view it from the outside, and then you can kind of have that perspective change as to what truly is of importance in this illusion, in this world, in this game that we call life. So I will read you a quote from session 80.11 and 80.12. So we're going to start with the questioner asks, could I say then that implicit in the process of becoming adept is the possible partial polarization towards service to self, because simply the adept becomes disassociated with many of his kind, or like in the particular density which he inhabits? Ra says, I am Ra. This is likely to occur. The apparent happening is disassociation, whether the truth is service to self, and thus true disassociation from other selves, or service to others, and thus true association with the heart of all other selves, and disassociation only from the illusory husks which prevent the adept from correctly perceiving the self and other self as one. I'm going to stop there. So this is such a beautiful quote. You remove yourself from the distortions of other people so that you can get closer to the heart of those people. When you're in the illusion of separation, it's easy to have the distortions of yourself and other people come between you two. And try as hard as you might, you can't get rid of that. There is this sort of block between you because of your judgments. And how do you get rid of those judgments? You remove yourself from the situation enough time that you can reevaluate your perceptions and the way you think about this person, and disassociate from those illusory husks of personality which prevent you from connecting with the heart of others. And so once you have gone away and sort of gone through that, and then you come back into the society, now you can sort of differentiate. You can differentiate between the ego illusory husks, the triggered moments of other people's personalities that want to just jump at you and attack you, and you can differentiate between that and their heart and their loving intentions, which most people truly honestly do have. They just get so distorted in their perceptions that it manifests in these weird ways in their life, where they sort of cope and project onto others instead of, learning to accept and love things from their heart. So you disassociate from the husks, and you associate with the heart of all other selves as you do this. Continuing on, 80.12, the questioner asks, then you say that this effect of disassociation on the service to others adept is a stumbling block or slowing process in reaching that goal which he aspires to. Is this correct? Ra answers, this is incorrect. This disassociation from the miasma of illusion and misrepresentation of each and every distortion is a quite necessary portion of an adept's path. It may be seen by others to be unfortunate. End of quote. I really always laughed at that one, because that one always sort of described an earlier portion of my life, and even parts of my life to this day. The part I laugh at is it may be seen by others to be unfortunate. Thus, cue my family how they see me. So I don't really tell my family that I do this podcast or this Law of One. I like to keep it sort of a labor of love, a secret to myself, so that I don't feel tempted to sort of play those ego games where it's like, well, see, I do good things too. Oh, I have proof. Blah 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 blah. I don't really care, right? How other people see me necessarily. Like I do, I want them to see me in the best possible light they can, but I'm not going to try to manipulate them into to believing it. It's sort of like, well, the world is a mirror, and if they want to see everything as terrible and ugly and negative and that other people are actually the worst possible representation of what they think, then so be it. Let them have that. Um, it may be seen by others to be unfortunate, but hopefully in the long run, they'll see that this sort of disassociation from the society and from the culture was in the long run for a good thing, and that in the long run you do hopefully turn out to be a better person, a more in touch person, a kinder person, down to earth person, somebody who knows how to enter their heart and just be that harmony and that kindness to other people. It's not always easy to speak the truth because there is what people want to hear and then there is what serves them. And so in your attempts to serve them, you're going to say some truthful things which they won't necessarily be happy about. So it is up to you and your artwork form to try to deliver that sort of difficult message in the most kind and harmonious and loving way that you can. And in speaking that truth, you overcome the admiration which overcomes discrimination, if I said that right. But you basically, it's okay to discriminate. You don't just want to be a blind, naive, loving entity who just sees everything as a perfect love because you're not at that stage yet. Like if you were, it would be appropriate for you. But most of us who find ourselves being naive in that case, it's because we're got too much compassion and not enough wisdom. And so we think that it serves people to just admire them and let them keep living their illusions, right? And we do have to respect their free will. So there is that too. This is a big part, is that even if you do speak truthfully to somebody and honestly, you do have to respect their free will to accept or deny whatever it is that you're giving them, right? That is why it's sort of important that when you are serving and attempting to deliver things truthfully to others, that you have a certain healthy level of detachment from the outcome. Because if you're too connected to the outcome, you're going to be tempted to sort of step on other people's free will to get your point across, when sometimes, I'll be honest with you, it's okay to be misunderstood. Some people don't seek understanding, they don't seek level playing field, they just want to be on the pedestal above you or whatever, right? And so I don't want to fight with those people. I really just want to connect with people who seek the truth, who are willing to put their ego and their sort of distortions and their low level survival instincts aside for the sake of seeking the heart of self and seeking love and understanding with each other, because to me that is what is mostly important about this life. So my friends, I think this will just be a shorter one today. I was having a little trouble even recording this podcast because of, well, you can tell by the nature of the podcast. I told you I'm being misunderstood in my life with my family and my friends. And this is something that comes around for me often. It's definitely one of my incarnational lessons, which comes around, every so often as incarnational lessons do. And so I am dealing with it again, hopefully as instead of a circle and having no growth, it's more like a spiral where, I'm moving up and getting the same catalyst again, but I'm getting it from a higher perspective. And so as I'm being misunderstood by, a certain family member who thinks that I am like troublesome, right? Like I can't even be around me. I'm like, wow, I really need to reflect and think about what I'm saying to these people. Is it my fault? Is it their fault for reflecting a certain way? I'm sure it's a bit of both, right? I don't want to pretend that I am some excellent, perfect being who is not above making mistakes. I make mistakes often. So I guess I just want to let you know, like, the process in my head as to the way I'm thinking about this scenario is that with this person who is having issue with me, obviously I want to be right, they want to be right, but I have to put that need to be right aside, and I want to try to connect with this person and be fair, hear their perspectives. Hopefully they then are able to hear my perspectives, and hopefully we can seek some fair level understanding with each other. And if not, if the free will of the other person insists that, I sort of act the way that they want to act, and if I feel that doesn't resonate with me, well, that's okay too. At least that we now understand each other and the way each other sees each other, so that we can, I can at least better accept the way that they view me. As hard as it might be to have them view me in a negative light, I would rather, see things truthfully as they are and attempt to change the way I deliver messages and the energy that I put behind messages, and choosing what messages to put out and to not put out. And that's all my responsibility. And so you can see, I just sort of want you to get an idea of the dynamics of the situation. There's not anybody who's totally right and totally wrong. There's just this beautiful interplay between you and other selves. And like Ra says, the biggest catalyst that you will ever have in your entire life is other selves. You can go seek whatever you want, but like the biggest growth and challenges in your life is going to be between you and other people. And so that's a good and a bad thing, right? I don't know how you want to see that. It's just sort of like, when you know the reality of the situation, then dealing with it becomes easier, because you're like, oh my gosh, other selves again? Oh, this is constantly happening to me. Well, it's okay. That's the whole point of them existing. It's kind of the whole point of us being here. So thank you, everybody, for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate you hanging out with me, philosophizing. If you appreciate what I do, could you please give this a like? It helps with the old algorithms. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to hear future podcasts. And the begging section here, right? If you find value in what I do, I'd really appreciate if you would join my Patreon or shoot me a one-time PayPal. I seek to do this in a long-term basis, and I just have to admit I need your help to do that. So I really appreciate, the first of the month is coming up, and all the Patreon people, your subscriptions are going to get put through again. And so I just want to thank you again, from the bottom of my heart. You have no idea how much you believing in me really helps me do this and keep going and keeping my consistency, right? I'm human. As much as I want to be perfect and think I could do this, absolutely freely given. And from the perfect intention of my heart, I do still need that sort of support. So thank you for listening. I love you guys. Thanks for seeking. Take care.